Welcome to my channel. Here we respond to comments. So, here we go. The question from my viewer was, how do you determine what an absolute moral standard is? If the source of this moral standard is a transcendent source, you will have evidence to show that this transcendent source is the origin of the absolute morality. In addition, the absolute moral standards would be absolute, clear-cut, unambiguous and unquestionable, no grey areas. I'm assuming you have answers for all these. Sure, let's tackle your questions with care. I appreciate the depth of your inquiry because it brings us to the heart of one of the most debated topics in philosophy and theology, absolute morality and its source. I'll address how absolute moral standards can exist and how intelligent design, ID, and belief in a transcendent source provide coherent answers. Determining an absolute moral standard. An absolute moral standard must transcend subjective human opinion. If morality were purely relative, what one society or individual sees as right could be just as valid as what another sees as wrong. Atrocities like slavery or genocide would have to be accepted as morally neutral under certain cultural conditions. This is the danger of moral relativism. C.S. Lewis argues in Mere Christianity that a moral law is evidence of a moral lawgiver. A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. The mere fact that we can call something unjust, whether slavery, genocide, or lying, implies there is an objective standard of justice against which we are measuring these actions. If morality evolved, as materialists claim, it would lack a firm anchor. It would shift with societal trends and become merely preferences in disguise. Absolute moral standards cannot come from within us. They must come from beyond us, from a transcendent, unchanging source. You ask whether there is evidence that a transcendent source provides the origin of absolute morality. The answer is yes, there are compelling arguments. The moral argument for God's existence: if objective moral values exist, they require a source beyond human invention. Justice or goodness would not exist as objective facts if they were purely the result of evolution or social agreement. A transcendent moral lawgiver, such as God, serves as the anchor for these values. This argument posits that without God, objective morality becomes an illusion, clear-cut and unchanging standards. While humans struggle with ambiguity, moral principles themselves remain absolute. Commands like "do not murder, do not steal, and love your neighbor" are universal and clear. Grey areas arise because we live in a broken, fallen world, not because the moral principles are unclear. Applying these principles can vary in complex situations, but the ethical framework remains unambiguous. Biblical evidence of moral absolutes. Jesus summarized the core of morality: love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself, Matthew 22:37-39. This is a clear-cut, timeless principle. Even when moral dilemmas arise, Scripture provides wisdom and guidance rather than abandoning the principle altogether. The grey area lies in human limitation, not in God's law. You mentioned the importance of no grey areas in absolute morality. However, the grey areas reflect our human limitations in understanding the full scope of these moral laws, not flaws in the laws themselves. Just as children do not always grasp the reasons behind their parents' rules, we may struggle with applying absolute morals, but that does not negate their validity or origin. Free will also plays a role. God gives humans free will to follow or reject these absolute standards, which is why evil exists. If God removed free will and forced moral behavior, we would cease to be free agents and become robots. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I will see you in the comments.